In Capernaum, a hot, busy place, sun sparkling off the Sea of Galilee, the wind blowing the stink of fish and coin, there was a man named Matthew, not a name that resonated with the grit of Peter's or the quiet fire of Thaddeus's. No, Matthew was like a stain on the righteous, a shadow of greed on a land of hope. Some knew him as Levi, son of Alphaeus, but Matthew once hung like a name, sharp as the scratch of a quill. He wasn't a fisherman battling waves or a craftsman molding stone. He was a tax collector, his stained hands stained with ink and silver, his heart hardened by the clink of Roman coins. This is his story, one of scorn, redemption, and a ledger rewritten with grace. Think Capernaum, a mercantile crossroads by the sea in the Roman Empire, bustling with all manner of merchants and fishermen, and the heavy tread of Roman boots. Matthew was in his booth, a wooden table cluttered with scrolls and coins, eyes steely, working the numbers. His father, Alphaeus, may have been a good man, but Matthew walked a different road, one of collecting taxes for Rome, robbing the poor to line the empire's coffers. He was displacing, not noisy. He was precise, the kind of man who knew your debt before you opened your mouth. They hated him, viled as they walked by, called his name. No visions of glory, no lust for fame, just a life dispensed in denarii and contempt. But Galilee wasn't a resting place for cold hearts in those days. Rome tightened its grip, the people groaned, and rumors of a Messiah wafted on the wind. Matthew heard them, but kept his head down, his quill scratching. Then came the day it all fell apart. It wasn't a riot or a reckoning that turned Matthew's world upside down. It was a man, and into his life, right there at that tax booth, stepped Jesus of Nazareth. The Gospels record it simply in Matthew 9:9. Jesus walked by, saw him sitting there, surrounded by coins and contempt, and said, "Follow me." No sermon, no judgment, just two words that pierced worse than any dagger. Matthew glanced up, the quill stuck mid-stroke, to eyes that didn't flinch from his shame. The crowd murmured, "Why him, this traitor?" Matthew's hands trembled, not from fear, but from a tug he could not calculate. He rose, left the coins and the scrolls in the booth, and followed. And just like that, he was an apostle. Matthew wasn't the lead like Peter, or the questioner like Thaddeus. He was one of the 12. The men in the lists, steady but never saying a word, and his past clung to him like dust. He witnessed Jesus heal the sick, feed thousands, raise the dead. Once, by the sea, Matthew had lingered on the margin, half expecting to be turned on, while Jesus taught about mercy. The others looked on in awe. Matthew listened, his mind racing. He was not one for speeches, but his faith was one that sank into flesh like ink on parchment. Slow, sure, permanent. Jesus saw it, though. He always did. That first night as a disciple, Matthew opened wide his house, Luke 5 puts it, a banquet for Jesus and the outcasts. Gene, even tax collectors, sinners, lowlifes of Capernaum packed in, laughing and drinking. The Pharisees were indignant. "Why does your teacher eat with such scum?" "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, it is the sick," Jesus said in response. Matthew was sitting among them, old life and new colliding, his heart hammering. He didn't answer for himself. He didn't have to. The mere presence of Jesus was enough, a grace he couldn't buy with all the coins in Rome. The years with Jesus flew by, a blur of wonders and weight. Matthew witnessed water become wine, storms settle at a word, a widow's son rise from a bier. He walked dusty roads and slept beneath stars. He listened as Jesus preached of a kingdom not of this world. When the bread was broken and the wine poured at the Last Supper, Matthew stood there, ink-stained hands and all, eyes fixed on Jesus. "One of you will betray me," Jesus said, and Matthew's breath caught. "Not me, Lord, not after this." He kept quiet as Peter pledged loyalty, as Judas drifted away. His ledger mind counted the hours, the cost, the love he hadn't ever tallied before. But love did not exempt him from the dark. At Gethsemane, when the soldiers arrived, Matthew was present. Peter fought, blade flashing. Matthew was frozen, watching Jesus heal and yield. Matthew saw it all, a witness to the price of grace. The arrest, the trial, the cross. He didn't run as some did. He didn't deny as Peter did. He didn't betray as Judas did. He stood on the edge, his hands empty, as the sky got blacker and the earth shook. When they placed Jesus in the tomb, Matthew waited, a whirl of questions in his head. Did he gain one master only to lose another? The silence was heavier than any coin he'd ever held. Then came the third day. The women came running back wide-eyed. "He's alive!" Matthew might have doubted. His numbers didn't add up. Before he saw Jesus on that shore, scars real and fish sizzling over a fire, something broke within him. No words, only a bow, a murmured "Rabbi." Matthew was in that room at Pentecost when the Spirit roared like wind and fire. Flames danced on his head. The proclaimer of ledgers spoke. Nations' tongues, words of life, announcing the resurrected King. The tax collector had turned helper, his voice more trenchant than his quill. Matthew didn't stop there. Tradition holds that he preached first in Judea, then outside of it, to Ethiopia or Persia or Parthia. The stories vary. Imagine him, the solitary man on trade routes, his tunic withered, his hands gripping a scroll. His gospel, some will wager, intended for his own people, the Jews, to prove that Jesus was the one they were waiting for. In Judea, he encountered Pharisees again. Their disdain not softened, but now he responded with parables about acts of compassion, not cash. He wrote it, chapter by chapter, miracle by miracle, word by word, moment by moment, down everything he'd counted in his soul. His gospel wasn't a raucous theological treatise like Peter's sermons. It was a record, a proof, a gift. The road grew hard. Matthew preached to kings and slaves in Ethiopia, or perhaps Persia. His language was simple and cutting. He paid your debt, died for you, rose for you. Some got down on all fours, others gnashed their teeth. The priests of foreign gods, or perhaps the lackeys of Rome, found their power pass away. Matthew did not back down. He had encountered hate before. History has a bitter ending, but the details confuse. Others say a sword claimed him, plunged through his chest as he prayed at an altar. The rest say he was stoned, rocks fracturing the body that one knelt in submission to Rome. Whatever the truth, Matthew became a martyr, and his blood a final entry in a ledger of faith. No empires quaked, not yet, but his death was a seed, pushing roots deep and wide. They buried him there, where he fell. Ethiopia, Persia, his name engraved on nothing too complicated for so complicated a man. Time morphed his name into legend. Saint Matthew, patron of accountants, of sinners in search of grace. Churches sprung up, his gospel radiated, and words that shouted even louder than Rome itself. The tax collector, the outcast of one-word sentences, left a mark that lasted forever. His life answered the question he never asked. Why him? Because men like him could see the cost and still say yes to love, step by step, scroll by scroll. And so is the saga of Matthew, the man who exchanged coins for a cross, silence for a story. He wasn't Peter, opening with fire, or John, dreaming in visions. He was simply Matthew, canny, cracked, salvaged, a quill in the clutch of something divine. A life reckoned turned to a reckoning, a debt turned to a gift. From those streets in Capernaum to the ends of the earth, he bore the name of Jesus, not in pomp, but in a way that, with quiet precision, endures.